Hello, this is Anthony Rutuno. This is an audio version of one of my recent blog posts. The link to the blog will be on this YouTube video or podcast, depending on when you're listening to it. At the moment, it's a YouTube video. Today is Saturday, November the 23rd, 2013, but it may become a podcast later. This is the second time I've done an audio version, so I'm just honing my technique. My voice is actually compared to John Peel after the first one, which is not a bad thing. You know, he had a relaxing delivery, quite good for late night radio. Maybe I should become a late night radio DJ. Now, one of the reasons why I do audio versions of blog posts is actually three reasons really. The first is that a lot of people don't like to read, which is fine. It's easier, I think, to listen to something than to read it, and of course it's easier to watch a video than do either of the other two. That's basically, I think, the way it goes usually. Also, you get a different sensation from audio. I mean, I'm doing a voice coaching course at the moment, actually. We're studying stuff about nuances and stress, intonation, all that kind of thing. I'm still stuck in a bit of a monotone at the moment, actually, but I'm trying to sort that out, develop my voice a little bit. And also, as I'm reading it, I'm basically going to be reading through this blog post, but I will be adding maybe a few thoughts of other thoughts or embellishing the blog post. So if you want to follow along, it's called Cynicism and Free Thought. And as I said, there's a link here that you can click on to get to the blog. So I've put at the beginning, cynical, realistic, positive, naive, with question marks. I would say that I've always considered myself a positive person. I've always had a sort of aversion to negativity and cynicism, and I realised after a while, as I got older, I'm in my 30s now, by the way, I realised that that aversion is really a kind of denial, in that you hear a lot of people moaning about things, and I think it kind of depends on their age how I view their moaning. If it's a young person moaning, I kind of take it slightly differently, because it seems like they maybe haven't had the life experience and haven't really had the knocks in life. It's not true of everybody, of course. Some people get the knocks when they're very young, but it maybe seems like it seems a bit more indulgent. You know, they say youth is wasted on the young, and I think if I look back at my own life, it's kind of true. You know, it's kind of weird for me to see teenagers complaining that they're tired all the time, or complaining that life's not fair and all that kind of thing. When you get older people, they do have a tendency, I guess, to sound like they're moaning, but it may be that they've had a certain number of experiences and they've had knocks. And often, you know, sometimes they have a moany voice, sometimes it sounds like a kind of world-weary cynicism. And perhaps that's quite legitimate, because it comes from experience. But right, I've written, though individual experiences and attitudes inevitably vary between individuals, it's thought that around the age of 45 our cynicism starts to grow. This creates great material for satire, but is it a positive or negative development? I should quickly say that this post is actually adapted from something I read in the London Guardian last summer 2013, a few months ago. So I've taken some of the ideas and added a lot of my own. And I think, just going back to what I was saying earlier about being cynical or being positive, I realised that there was an element of denial in my positivity, and that there was also quite a bit of naivety. So at the beginning I put cynical, realistic, positive, naive. It's quite difficult. We can add skeptic to that as well. It's quite difficult to fully know what all those words mean, and whether they're actually good or bad things. Is being positive actually a positive thing? Is it a good thing? Perhaps in a life or death situation, being positive might mean just thinking, well, you know, God will get me out of this, or having faith without a sort of practical action. That could be one example of when a positive attitude is not necessarily the best thing. Right, cynical is a word which creates a trigger that screams of negativity as soon as you hear it, but upon further investigation it may be that in the right hands, which would be the hands of an open-minded and well-researched person, prepared to research topics to build on information fed to him or her through the regular channels, a sceptical attitude borne out by a sufficient number of facts is a healthy thing. It can allow development of ideas without over-caution and the creation of self-censorship in the mind. It makes us question things and maybe even take action. So now we're really looking at skepticism versus cynicism. And I think I'll talk a bit more about how I would define those words. Cynical means believing that humans are motivated, this is quotes, motivated by base desires or selfishness, and being, quote, skeptical of the integrity, sincerity and motives of others. More strongly, a cynic can be, quote, bitterly or jadedly distrustful, contemptuous and or mocking. These are dictionary definitions from various dictionaries. If a cynic is jaded, they are, quote, wearied, exhausted, callous and or insensitive, which seem to show a link between someone who has taken their knocks in life and with bitterness decided that, quote, life is shit and then you die. The cynic isn't always fun to be around, and if he's relatively famous, might appear on television shows such as the BBC's Grumpy Old Men. The cynic moans, quote, moans, and drags people down to their level of, quote, gloominess. Lots of quote marks here. The reason is I'm kind of, when I use a quote mark, I'm basically using a word in a popular sense, but perhaps it's not really in the literal sense. It's the way that something is popularly used. So, we have a picture in our mind of the stereotypical world-weary middle-aged cynic, but the other side of the argument is very telling. For example, a cynic needs to have it proved that someone in a position of power isn't self-serving and manipulative. Of course, guilty until proven innocent is considered very base and unfair in terms of the law, but with the steady and constant stream of verifiable stories of corruption and scandal among those in powerful positions, along with the now well-recognised psychological effects of giving vast power to certain people, an optimist seems to be willingly sweeping aside sceptical doubts without having to go to the bother of checking if they are well-grounded. You can see I'm getting into my long sentences here. I think that what we're really looking at is the issue of whether having a certain instinctive individual belief has come about through action and information gathering, or a lazy and perhaps fearful retreat to a fixed view. A lazy cynic and a lazy optimist are equally bad, as is a lazy sheep. Now, we've probably heard of the phrase sheeple, which is a mixture of sheep and people. And it's the idea that people tend to follow the herd and don't really think for themselves. I'll let you be the judge of that. Any basic research about what appears to happen in the world simply cannot rule out the crucial factor of vested interest and the corruptibility of humans in power. This is not a slur on the human race by any means. At worst, it is a slur on a certain human instinct, and the good cynic/skeptic/realist with a decent handle on human nature is likely to also acknowledge the basic decency and generosity of humans. As I put in my blog intro, I believe, I think I said the vast majority of the world are decent people, and I totally stand by that. I have no reason not to think that. It's just that in a system, it seems that the less empathetic people tend to get to the top. Very few people you meet are going to or want to do you harm. The toxic cynic, of course, may not believe in anyone at all, but what of the possible toxicity of the optimist? Their upbeat language could be chocolate-flavoured poison. I love that phrase. Because it gives the impression that the system that runs the world isn't the problem, rather than it's something wrong with certain people's brain chemistry. Cynics or non-believers of the man-made global warming theory might concur with the similarity of blaming humans and their nature, quite a theme in mainstream media output. So, humans cause global warming rather than the sun. A lot of humans react to a perfectly sane world by having negative, irrational thoughts due to something wrong in their brain. And of course, some concoct wild, quote, conspiracy theories due to their need for excitement in their lives. Ditto the global financial crisis which started in 2007, which was largely blamed on citizens wanting something for nothing and overindulging their credit options. I'll just talk about that briefly.